First of all, the title should be How to Train Your Dragon 3. You know, the sequel to How to Train Your Dragon and How to Train Your Dragon 2. But How to Train Your Dragon was the first movie I saw in 3D that actually made sense to me. It enhanced the experience and didn't feel like a gimmick. It also happened to be a pretty good movie. I liked it quite a bit. Then 4 years later, which is a long time to make a sequel these days, the second one came out. I didn't expect much, but I loved it. I thought it was better than the first one, which is pretty rare, and now it's been 5 more years since that one. And here we are with the third and hopefully final installment. 9 years after the first one. That's a long time. I was 22 when I saw the first one, and I'm in my 30s now. But you know what? I respect them taking their time. They did it the right way. They didn't force it or rush it. They took the time they needed to tell the story right. And I'm sure Dean DeBlois is mainly to thank for that, but also the studio. DreamWorks could have easily rushed the whole trilogy out in like 4 years. But they didn't, and the results speak for themselves. This is a really good movie. And pretty much the perfect end to the story too. I'd even go as far as to say that this is one of my favorite trilogies ever made. Not my favorite, but one of them. Now, is this movie fantastic? No. As a standalone film, it's just good. But as a bookend to the trilogy and as an end to the overarching story, it's really good. The dramatic plot in this with the villain was pretty flimsy. It really didn't add much to it. But that's not really the point of the movie either. And in case you haven't seen any of these, well, go watch them. But also, I guess I could do a very brief recap. It's essentially about a society of Vikings, who have been at odds with dragons for a long time. But throughout the first 2 movies that sort of changes, mainly because of the new chief, this kid called Hiccup, and his dragon called Toothless. They managed to bring dragons and people together, and that's pretty much where this picks up. With this Viking tribe and dragons living in harmony in their village. And the movie is mainly about Hiccup and Toothless, that's the focus here. And the whole relationship between dragons and humans in general. But there's a pretty heavy emphasis on Toothless in this one. He gets his own story and arc, and I like what they did with that. And they did tie that storyline to the villain in a way that made sense. So it's not like the villain was irrelevant. But his motivations were really weak. But he's mainly just there to facilitate the drama and move the story forward. To give the Vikings and dragons something to go up against. So it's not just about Toothless and Hiccup. Although it could have been. That would have been fine too. Because that is really the core of the story here. But I get it, you gotta add some excitement and bring in the rest of the cast too. So yeah, I like the story here, and especially the very end was pretty much perfect. Something definitely got in my eye there. Might have been allergies, and I couldn't really have asked for more. And I did go into this a bit scared, afraid that it would let me down after all these years. But it didn't. It didn't blow me away, but it finished strong. And that's very much fine with me. But I'd also like to mention the animation, because I thought it was fantastic. The whole movie looked a lot more cinematic too than the previous ones. At least from what I remember, but the detail in this is really good. I'm just blown away by what they can do these days, with the lighting and the textures and all that. But I do really wish I'd gone back and watched the first 2 before this, because it would have been interesting to see how they hold up these days. And also to see how much the animations changed in 9 years. But I didn't, so I guess I'll just remember them fondly, and watch them all 3 in a row one day. And that's about it, a good movie and a pretty strong end to the trilogy. I enjoyed it a lot, but would I recommend it? Yeah, but watch the other 2 first. Or you could do none of that. After all, I'm still not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to get myself a fleet of dragons and a private island. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.